Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher. Thanks for joining me for the Sweetwater Minute. Today we're in Sweetwater Studio C. I have a very special guest today. This is Jack Joseph Puig. Thanks for being here. I appreciate your time. Now, you're a very well-known producer, engineer, mixer. Your credits include people like U2, Black Eyed Peas, Mary J. Blige, Keith Urban, Lady Gaga. The list is incredibly extensive. You've worked in all kinds of different styles of music, all kinds of genres and things. Now, you have an incredible room at Oceanway. I've actually had a chance to visit there, and you have a notorious collection of gear that you use, analog gear, digital gear, all kinds of different things, and a wonderful console as well. But the reason you're actually here at Sweetwater is that you have a line of plugins that have come out through Waves.
Correct.
Can you tell us a little bit about that bundle of plugins?
Yes, I can. I feel that obviously the digital format is massively entrenched in our lives and is biting at the heels of what's left of analog. I just came from Chicago, where there were 7 great record studios, and there's one. That's it, CRC. That's the last one standing. Los Angeles used to have the choice of 40, 50 great record studios. There's 7. New York is almost a ghost town, and London is not in much better condition. So, in the same way that we see technology evolve in our lives and change our lives, you had the wire recorder at one point, then tape came, then there was different kinds of tape, then they had a Dolby unit, then they had a different kind of Dolby unit, then they made a Dolby SR, then they made a DBX, then a digital tape machine came, then you had NECAM 1, NECAM 2, NECAM 96, George Massenburg, automation. The list goes on as it kept as chips came in our lives more and more, and technology came in our lives, right? It changed the way you made records. And you had a choice of either adopting that technology or throwing a blind eye to it. And unfortunately, I've seen a lot of people before me that I really respected throw a blind eye to it. And I watched what happened. And that was a lesson I learned. You can't do that. As if you're making records if you're making Norman Rockwell's, if you're making Mona Lisa's, then you can go ahead and use the great microphone and the great equalizer and the great compressor and get that great sound.
Right.
But if you're making commercial records, which I liken to Norman Rockwell, something that appeals to pop culture at large, you have to and should and need to make the art something that appeals to the mass public.
Sure.
And digital and the sound of digital, whether we like it or don't like it, think it's better, think it's worse, none of that really matters. What matters is that's become the sound. So with that lengthy explanation, I decided that I wanted to make plugins that had some of the beauty of some of the things that we like of the past, right? But also had all the beautiful things that we have in the future. In my opinion, I've always been really excited about merging the styles.
Right.
There's aspects I really like of old records, and there's aspects of what I like of new records, all of which only transpire because technology dictate the way something sounds. So obviously the Fairchild 670, which is very, very, famous compressor, and maybe consider the Rolls Royce of all of them, the grandfather certainly. Right. We modeled that and created the Puig Child. For one, because I wanted the digital archive of what that is, and I wanted that sound as a choice in my palette, and I wanted other people to have that sound. And yet at the same time, there are modern compressors, smart compressors we'll call them, multi-band compressors, that have a sexiness to them and an excitement to them that the Fairchild doesn't do. It's grandpa. Right? So the exciting thing is to have everybody in the family. So to have what's great about the 60s, what's great about the 70s, what's great about the 80s, what's great about the 90s, and put them together is a very sexy, exciting notion for me.
Right.
So the plugin is exactly that. It has all the different aspects I just described available to the user. It initially comes on and has a sound to it that's beautiful and fantastic right out of the box, right? And then you're able to make whatever changes you want to make very easily, but in a musical way, meaning that what I did with the plugins is I didn't want to have 10 hertz, 25K. That doesn't mean anything to musicians. 10 hertz means you hit me 10 times. Like, they don't understand what that means.
Right.
Right? So lows, highs, punch, sustain, attitude. Those things make sense to me because they're the way that we talk when we're in a record studio creating.
Right. No one says, I want more 10 hertz on my kick
Correct.
drum or something.
And now, if in trying to connect all the dots, if we look at what I just said about the record studios, then that means where are the records being made? Who are making the records? The day of Quincy Jones, of George Martin, the A-list genius record producer, right, isn't how the records are being made any longer. I'm getting the records into mix from major record labels, or whether it's an act that I sign or something I do. I am getting those records in, and most of the times they're made by the guy who has a guitar in his lap, or the keyboard player that has 3 keyboards set up, that's running Digi 03 or an 02 or a half-baked Pro Tool system he put together because he didn't have that much money, whatever it might be.
Right.
It's being made in all these different meg-shift situations. Those records are being made in a strip mall next to a dentist's office in Van Nuys, California, as well as a cornfield here in Indiana.
Right.
It's every situation you can imagine. So,
Sure.
given that if that's 75-80% of how a lot of the records are being made, it made sense to me to make a plugin for those people. I'm not interested in the professional world going crazy over the plugin. They'll like it, and some people will use it, some people won't.
Right.
I know with the Puig Child and the Puig Tech that it's definitely what I shouted out some of Ways' largest success, because everyone's using it, the professional people as well as we'll call the musician. But with these, they're really aimed for people that are making records in these situations where they don't have the ability to sit in the $3,000 recording studio, either because it doesn't exist, or fortunately, but unfortunately because they can't afford it. Record companies don't have $200, $300, $400, $500, $700, $1 million to make a record any longer.
Right.
That's gone. They don't have the money. Now they only have $100,000 or $50,000. Panic at the Disco's last record, not the very last, but the one previous to that, was made for $10,000. The whole thing.
It's amazing.
So you don't have access to some of the tools that we know are great. We know that on a desert island that a 1073 Neve module and an SM57 and a Telefunken 251, a U47. I mean, there's some pieces of equipment that are like a GM Camaro. They just work.
Right.
Throw them against the wall, still works. Always will work. Someone tall, skinny, black, white, yellow, purple, orange, country, disco, it doesn't matter. It just works. Right? And so these plugins, I wanted to have that same mentality. My dream and hope is that there'll be something that all these kinds of people can immediately use and very quickly acquire what's taking me actually quite a while to learn by trial and error.
Right.
They get immediately. And again, they also aren't going to have access to some of the tools that have inspired me or that I've used to create this because it doesn't exist.
Right.